When my dad's secret almost tore our family apart, I used to think my family was the kind of solid, boring unit sitcom writers secretly envied. We had Sunday breakfasts where my mom's pancakes somehow always came out the exact shade of golden brown, a dad who worked steady hours at an accounting firm, and a younger brother who drove me crazy but never let anyone else mess with me. Our house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac lined with sugar maples, and everything about it screamed normal. Looking back, maybe we clung to that normal a little too tightly, like if we followed the script, nothing bad could touch us. Summer nights were my favorite. Dad would haul out the old charcoal grill, Mom would put on a playlist full of 90s hits, and my brother Evan and I would argue over who got the last cob of corn. We weren't perfect. There were slammed doors, silent car rides, and Mom's occasional sharp sigh when Dad forgot an errand. But the bad moments were small ripples on what felt like a calm lake. That illusion started to crack on a humid evening last July. I just graduated from college and was home for a few weeks, trying to figure out the terrifying stretch of life people politely call early adulthood. My room still looked like a time capsule, movie posters from high school, a corkboard covered with college acceptance letters, even the lamp shaped like a rocket I'd bought at a yard sale when I was 11. I was sprawled across my bed scrolling through job listings when I heard my dad's voice drifting up from the kitchen. At first, nothing about it caught my attention, just his usual low rumble. Then I realized he was speaking in a hushed, almost urgent tone I'd never heard before. Curious, I padded halfway down the stairs. From where I stood, I could see him leaning against the counter, phone pressed tight to his ear. His back was to me, shoulders slightly hunched, as if he were bracing himself against a storm. "I told you I can't keep doing this," he said, voice rough. "No, not here. You know what's at stake." I froze. My dad was not a man of mysteries. He labeled everything, literally. His workshop jars bore neat strips of masking tape, nails, 3/4 in, wood glue, random screws I might need. The idea that he could have a whole secret conversation rattled me more than I wanted to admit. Before I could eavesdrop further, he ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. A second later, the kitchen light clicked off, and I scrambled back upstairs like a guilty spy. Lying awake that night, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was a work call about taxes or a last-minute client issue. But the unease gnawed at me, whispering that something deeper was hiding just beneath the surface of our calm little lake. 2 mornings later, the air felt heavy with an approaching thunderstorm. I came downstairs to grab coffee before my internship interview. Dad was at the table, scrolling his phone with an expression I couldn't read. "Morning," I said. He startled, then forced a smile. "Hey, champ. Big day?" I nodded, pretending not to notice the way he quickly locked the screen. While pouring coffee, I spotted a slip of paper on the counter. A number was scribbled on it with a name I didn't recognize, Clara. Something about the hurried handwriting looked desperate. The storm finally broke that afternoon while I sat in a cafe after my interview. Rain hammered the windows, and my brain kept replaying the name Clara. I couldn't shake the image of Dad whispering into the phone. Who is she? A coworker? A friend? Something worse? I texted my brother Evan, who was at summer camp working as a counselor. Me, did Dad ever mention someone named Clara? Evan, nope. Why? Me, just curious. His nonchalance only made me more certain there was something to worry about. That evening, I offered to clear the table after dinner. While everyone was distracted with dishes, I slipped Dad's phone from the counter and ducked into the hallway bathroom. My heart raced as I scrolled through his contacts, but there was no Clara. Messages were spotless too. As if scrubbed clean, I shoved the phone back where I found it and spent the rest of the night replaying every memory of Dad, searching for cracks I might have missed, late nights at the office, unexplained absences, the way Mom sometimes looked at him when she thought no one was watching. Curiosity curdled into obsession over the next week. I started noticing patterns. Dad leaving the house early on Saturdays, lingering near the garage with his phone, sudden changes in mood after unknown calls. One afternoon, I asked Mom casually, "Hey, do you know anyone named Clara?" She glanced up from chopping onions, frowning. "Clara? No. Why?" I shrugged. Think I overheard Dad mention her. Maybe a client? She looked thoughtful, then brushed it off. But later that night, I caught her watching Dad with a pinched expression, as if a seed of doubt had been planted. By then, I'd decided I couldn't keep sneaking around alone. When Evan came home on his day off, I cornered him in the driveway. "I think something's going on with Dad," I blurted. Evan raised an eyebrow. "Like what? Affair?" The word hung in the air, sour and heavy. We spent an hour brainstorming theories: secret gambling debt, long-lost relative, terminal illness he didn't want to burden us with. Every guess felt like tugging at threads of the life we thought we knew. That night, lightning bugs flickered in the backyard while I lay awake, phone clutched in hand. My search history was a mess of signs your parent is hiding something and how to confront family secrets. None of it made me feel prepared. The tipping point arrived on a Friday. Mom invited us to a family dinner. Her tone suggested it wasn't optional. We gathered around the table, Mom stiff, Evan fidgeting, me trying to hide how fast my pulse was racing. Dad served himself lasagna, oblivious to the tension crackling like static. Finally, Mom set down her fork. "John," she said quietly, "who's Clara?" Dad froze. His fork clinked against the plate. For a moment, he looked like someone who'd been caught mid-leap between two worlds. "She called the house last week," Mom pressed. I answered. Dad closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. "I was going to tell you," he said, voice hoarse. I just didn't know how. What spilled out over the next half hour rewrote everything we thought we knew about him. Clara wasn't a lover. She was his half-sister, a sibling he hadn't known existed until a few months ago. Their father, my grandfather, had an affair decades earlier and a child out of wedlock. Clara had tracked Dad down after finding old letters in an attic. "She's been through hell," Dad said, rubbing his temples. "I wanted to meet her before dragging you into it. I didn't want to hurt Mom, or make things messy if she turned out to be lying." Relief and anger crashed together inside me. He hadn't cheated, but he had kept a huge part of himself secret, shutting us out of a story that belonged to all of us. Mom listened quietly, tears sliding down her cheeks. Evan sat stunned, like he'd been hit by a slow-moving train. The days after that dinner felt like walking through fog. Conversations were stilted. I caught Dad staring at old family photos, as if checking whether they still fit. Eventually, Mom invited Clara to meet us. She arrived with nervous eyes and a smile so much like Dad's it startled me. Hearing her talk about growing up alone, always wondering where she belonged, cracked something in me. I realized Dad wasn't just hiding a secret, he was wrestling with guilt, loyalty, and fear of losing us. We spent that afternoon in the backyard, eating peach cobbler while Clara told stories about their shared father. For the first time in weeks, laughter threaded through the air. Of course, not everything healed overnight. Trust takes time. But slowly, new routines formed. Weekly calls with Clara, family dinners where no topic was off limits, even a group text that Evan jokingly named Siblings 2.0. 6 months later, I'm writing this from my apartment across town. The world didn't end, though for a while it felt like it might. Dad and Clara meet for coffee every other week. Mom sometimes joins them, a quiet show of grace. Evan teases Dad about having bonus family, and Dad, to his credit, laughs. As for me, I've learned that families aren't static portraits. They're living mosaics, full of fractures and surprises and pieces you didn't know were missing. Secrets can wound, but they can also open doors to deeper understanding if you're brave enough to face them. I still picture that night at the dinner table. The fork clinking against porcelain, the tremor in Dad's voice, the moment we all stood on the edge of something new. We didn't fall apart. We rebuilt, a little different but maybe stronger. And every time I see Clara's name pop up in our group chat, I remember how close we came to losing each other and how grateful I am that, in the end, we chose to stay.